Every leader says they want alignment, everyone rowing in the same direction. Focus on the few goals that will actually restart growth. And yet, in most organizations, something else happens. Teams create dozens of OKRs, objectives become vague aspirations, key results track activity rather than impact. Execution fragments. You've probably heard the warnings. Most OKR implementations fail. Teams game the system. Leaders confuse ambition with chaos. The framework becomes bureaucratic overhead rather than strategic leverage. But the failure never stems from OKR themselves. It always stems from the implementation, how leaders choose to use them, train teams, and support them to change how they think about goals and execution. The question isn't whether OKRs work. The question is this: will you use them as a goal tracking tool or as strategic execution infrastructure? That distinction determines whether OKRs speed up growth or quietly dissolve into administrative theatre. This briefing presents Socrates' OKR implementation methodology, built over a decade of hands-on work with growth companies, refined across hundreds of implementations and designed not from theory but from practice. What follows is the systems and thoughts and processes that make OKRs strategic rather than cosmetic. Let's start with what OKRs actually are when used for growth. Most organizations misunderstand the framework from the beginning. OKRs are not a productivity tracker. They're not a task management system. They're not a performance appraisal tool. They are strategic execution infrastructure. When implemented correctly, OKRs communicate the few most important goals the organization has committed to achieving within a defined period with measurable outcomes that determine success. The key results define whether those strategic big bets, aka OKRs, are working. The outcomes dictate the capabilities required and the actions taken. So the framework only works when it's connected to strategy. Too many companies equate strategy with financial targets. They set revenue goals and label them as strategic priorities. But revenue is a result, not a strategy. A real strategy makes choices: where to play, how to win, which customers to serve, what differentiated value to deliver, what capabilities to build that competitors cannot easily replicate. OKRs execute those choices. So the objective articulates that strategic bet. The key results test whether that bet is succeeding. And for leaders wanting to speed up growth, this has immediate implications. If strategic clarity doesn't exist, OKRs fragment effort rather than align it. Socrates' client experience reinforces what broader research has documented. Organizations implementing outcome-based frameworks, particularly OKRs, significantly outperform peers. The performance multipliers are not marginal either. We're talking higher revenue growth, lower attrition, greater execution speed. But the advantage comes from one critical implementation choice: outcomes, not outputs. Outputs are the work. Think launches, campaigns, sprints, features shipped, perhaps meetings held. Outcomes are the measurable results. Think fast-moving metrics that show customer behavioral shifts, address root cause issues, as well as directing action on opportunities for future growth. This distinction is operational, not philosophical. If your key results measure outputs, you track activity. If they measure outcomes, you test whether the work is actually moving growth metrics. Half of the companies that seek help with OKRs are repairing suboptimal implementations where key results are output-based. The multiplier is lost before execution even begins. So for growth mandate leaders, this question must be asked weekly. Is the work moving predictive metrics, or are we just completing projects? I'd like to now talk to you about the number of priorities and therefore OKRs in play at the top of the company. Every leadership team faces the same pressure. Perhaps sales needs rebuilding, marketing needs to build pipeline, product needs clarity on what's going to drive growth, operations have bottlenecks, customer success perhaps that's overwhelmed. Ultimately, everything feels urgent. But research consistently shows that organizations with more than 7 strategic priorities dilute focus and resources to the point where none receive adequate attention. The companies that grow 3 times faster do something different. They choose way fewer priorities. They choose 3 to 5 cohesive strategic priorities, not 5 random goals, 5 reinforcing bets. This discipline forces uncomfortable choices. You cannot hedge across a dozen initiatives. You must commit to the few battles where winning creates compounding advantage. This creates immediate decision pressure. Which 3 to 5 strategic bets have the highest probability of driving growth? Everything else, even important work, must be managed differently. One of the most common implementation failures occurs when everything becomes an OKR. When everything is strategic, nothing is. Zochry's approach to OKRs requires organizations to explicitly distinguish between strategic work that creates a differentiated competitive advantage, and to ask if the success of your OKRs will build unique value for products and services customers can't get elsewhere. Can it be delivered in ways competitors can't easily replicate and with capabilities that can sustain an advantage, and will it move you from good to market leading? And for non-strategic work, which of course is still important, you'll have things like operational health, compliance, technical debt, discovery projects. Let me be clear, these are essential, but they do not receive an OKR treatment. Instead, they are tracked through operational dashboards and portfolio reporting. This distinction prevents OKRs from collapsing under their own weight. For leaders, this filter is essential. Strategic OKRs receive disproportionate attention, resourcing, and cross-functional alignment. Everything else is managed, but not inflated. So, these are the 4 principles that make OKRs work. At Zochry, we're fans of guiding principles. 4 favorite OKR guiding principles are these. 1. Strategic connection. Each OKR must explicitly connect to one of the 3 to 5 strategic big bets. If a team cannot articulate how their OKR advances a strategic bet, it's not an OKR. Alignment is not automatic either. It must be clearly articulated in words. 2. Articulated value creation. Objectives must communicate urgency and value clearly. Vague goals like foster innovation fail because no one understands what success looks like, why it matters, and what changes when it's achieved. Instead, strong, long-form OKR narratives can energize. They influence behavior. They make strategic bets visible and meaningful. Ultimately, words really matter with great OKRs. 3. Cross-team commitment. Most strategic objectives require cross-functional capabilities. If the objective owner cannot secure explicit commitment from supporting functions, key results will stall. Dependencies kill momentum. Alignment must happen before the quarter begins and not during the execution. 4. Resourcing for success, and this is probably my favorite. Only people, time, and enablement move key results forward. So teams must have dedicated time, reduced context switching, clear trade-offs about what they will stop doing, cross-functional support. Even brilliant OKRs fail when under-resourced. Now let's talk about rituals that make OKRs cultural rather than cosmetic. Without a structured cadence, OKRs can lose momentum within weeks. Effective OKR rituals are recurring, structured, outcome-focused, and high return on time invested. A typical quarterly cycle includes 6 rituals. The first is the weekly OKR update. It's asynchronous, so no meetings should be required. The update should not take long, and the update should be shared with stakeholders. The second, the weekly or bi-weekly check-in. If your OKRs are good and being worked on, there's a lot to talk about. The opposite is true as well. If teams don't want to meet and the value of the meeting is low, you need to worry why. The third is the monthly review. Here you might get together senior leaders and multiple OKR teams. It's your chance to recalibrate, check assumptions, and make adjustments where needed. The fourth is leadership reporting. As part of a wider portfolio of reports, OKRs need to be reported on with the appropriate narrative, which includes decisions to be made and the support that's needed. The fifth, the quarterly retrospective. As you close the quarter, you reflect on progress, learning, and the value created. And finally, the quarterly reset and the new OKRs. Realignment against strategy and organizational context happens here. This cadence prevents strategic drift. OKRs remain visible, active, alive. So your next steps, well, if you're using OKRs or a similar goal framework, start with 4 tests. 1. A strategic filter test. Do your current priorities create differentiated value and competitive advantage? If everything is strategic, nothing is. 2. Priority count test. If you have more than 5 strategic priorities, and let me be clear, fewer is better, focus is fragmented, which 3 to 5 will truly speed up growth. 3. An outcome test. Are your key results measuring outputs or outcomes that predict growth? 4. A resource test. Do teams have dedicated time, cross-functional support, and permission to stop lower priority work? If not, OKRs will not drive change. So remember, used correctly, OKRs do not track activity. They force strategic choice. They concentrate resources, they test outcomes, and they build momentum. They turn alignment from aspiration into infrastructure.